Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now I'm going to be talking about Gabranth today's video, but I'm also going to be talking about Dimensions and Transcendance. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to, instead of just kind of consolidating everything into one video, I feel that DE Transcendance needs a little bit more in-depth explanation, so I'm actually going to make this into two videos. So the one you're watching now is going to be solely about Gabranth and therefore whether you should pull on him, as you would come to expect from my normal videos, and then I'm going to release another one that's going to talk about DE Transcendance and the strategy behind beating it, because it's brand new, it's like the next level of content, it's very difficult, and I thought I'd best go about that separately. So if you want to learn more about Gabranth, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. As always guys, don't forget to check out all of my social links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. Twitch this week, I will be doing my FF count up as I do every week for FF3, so do come and join in with that. On Sunday I should be doing some Final Fantasy 14, and of course I'll be doing all of the events as they become live on Dissidia as well. With regards to FF14 though, you may have seen me say in my Kai's pull video that I've been looking at doing a lot more content for Final Fantasy 14, and that's still true. Like, I've been enjoying my journey with that game, and learning from other people and being able to impart that knowledge to others is something that's really enjoyable for me, so I am looking at doing more FF14 content in the future. So let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see that perhaps you haven't seen from other FF14 content creators and like things like that. Also, I've just noticed that my green lettering on my t-shirt is now showing through neon because of my green screen, and that's actually kind of cool. With regards to Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be It's a Mystery. So thank you very much for your support. You've been a sort of patron of mine for quite a while now, so it massively means a lot to me. And if you would like to get a title card for yourself, just like It's a Mystery has here, as well as other benefits, such as we all have voice chats together, and we do things like getting involved with Would You Pull, all sorts of other things like that, then perhaps consider becoming a patron yourself. And then, of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators that are linked just down below as well, and all the other resources there are for Dissidia Opera Omnia, including Tombury Troop and Dissidia Info, all sorts of different places, as a lot of these places actually have guides for DE Transcendance, and I very much encourage you to check them out as well. Okay, so now let's talk about everyone's favourite judge, Gabranth, and the banner that he comes on. So the banner is going to feature Cecil's burst weapon for the last time, so if you haven't got it already, this is your last opportunity to do so. It's obviously going to feature all of Gabranth's gear, so his LD, his EX, 1535, etc. And it's also going to feature King and Raijin EX. Now, Raijin EX has obviously had its time in the sun. You're probably not going to be taking it to DE Transcendance or anything, but it's still a nice thing to have. And King is, well, King. He's not bad, but he's just a straight damage dealer. And at this point in time, as I've said many times before, characters with just their EX kind of fall to the wayside outside of Chaos challenges at this point. Now, Gabranth is a bit of an oddball. When Gabranth was first released, he came out alongside Vahn's burst and LD, so he was a character that was released after LDs were, but he only actually had an EX with him. But he was still a very competent character then, and he was like now getting an LD and a very slight rework that does actually help him quite a bit and makes his skill 1 significantly better in order to kind of really round him out. He is very much the opposite of what I said about Kais last time, in that he's a character you can pretty much slot into any team and he works because he covers so many roles all at once. Like, he's a great damage dealer, he's like very much got tanking capabilities, he's got debuffing, he has instant break in his kit, which, as we've seen with Ramza, is not to be underestimated, and he just does a lot of different things. So to talk about the rework that he has, he gets 2 extra uses of Circle of Judgment. Now, Circle of Judgment was originally kind of your way of setting everything up, so he needs to have his framed debuff, so Criminal's Mark, which transforms into a stronger version of itself called Outlaw's Brand as long as the enemy has 4 or more debuffs on them. And this is basically a attack down, attack down, defense down, and a poison that actually ends up being very strong, and it also adds an extra 10% HP damage taken to those enemies. Whereas as Criminal Mark, it just has attack down and a slightly weaker poison. But he also inflicts attack and defense down, sort of generic attack and defense down debuffs alongside a lot of what he does, so he's able to get to that by himself. He doesn't require external means in order to get to Outlaw's brand. And Judgment comes off of it, which is literally just a framed max bravery lowering. This all comes off of Circle of Judgment, and it all comes like when he starts the fight because of his EX+. Now Circle of Judgment has a bravery refund on it, so that it's now a bravery battery as well. So it's got more use than just applying Criminal's Mark and those like generic debuffs, which makes a huge difference to him. And then you have Guilt. Now Guilt here is listed as just being a brave HP with splash damage on it, but what it actually has on there as well, and this comes down to how important Outlaw's brand is to Gabranth. If you have Outlaw's brand up, basically this comes from his 35 CP weapon. It is an instant break, and even if they are already broken, it unbreaks them and breaks them again, just like Vayne used to do. We've seen a few characters do it. And then 50% splash damage. It's just a really good move. Like the fact that you get 8 uses of this is actually very strong in general. Like you get a good amount of damage, you get re-break, like instant break in general is just a fantastic thing to have because it counters mass brave gains, it counters the like big attacks that are just bravery based that you weren't expecting, and it's a safety call. So it actually adds a heck of a lot to him. The other thing with his Judge Magister buff as well is that Judge Magister is a great party aura. It adds attack and max bravery plus 50% to the party, which is great on its own. And it also reduces bravery damage by 30%. So that's where the tanking capabilities come in, because he's reducing your opponent's attack and increasing the amount, or the decreasing amount of bravery damage that the party's taking at the same time. And it also means that when you're using his various moves and he's attacked, he's actually able to counter and apply Criminal's Mark and Judgment to any enemy that attacks. So basically, this actually procs a lot of sap, poison, counter. He procs a lot of different Lufenia orbs. So if you're going through a lot of the earlier ones, then Gabranth is actually very helpful for that. His C65 actually as well, I should know, is actually a great method of reducing damage even further, because it reduces the HP damage that you take for the following few turns by 60%, or by 40%, and then this compounds with his LD, which we'll get to in a little while, which reduces it further, meaning you're taking 60% less HP damage, and then 30% less bravery damage as well. So it just all adds up to being a really tanky package. Now his EX was very, very strong when it came out because it kind of needed to be, based on the fact that it was all he had. He didn't have an LD when he was released, and that's the thing. So basically, it's another thing that kind of wants you to have the Outlaw's brand on, because it turns it into a plus version of itself. And it's basically got another re-break on there, or instant break, and you get splash damage on there, and quite a heavy splash damage as well to boot. And then, but when you go into the ingots and nuggets and things like that, you'll notice that he starts with Judge Magister. Your opponents start with Criminal's Mark and Judgment, meaning you don't have to apply them straight away. And then Quickening is just a massively hard-hitting attack. When you use it in its plus version of itself, you get 5-hit brave HP that hits 3 times. That's 3 HP dumps, and we're seeing that sort of thing from Seador now. So the fact that you're getting such a hard-hitting attack is great as well, and you're getting brave gain after each HP attack as well, and then you get 50% splash damage off of it as well. So it's gonna hit really hard. You've got the fact that you get all of the the re-break and everything else coming out of it. It's all just great stuff. There's nothing outwardly bad about Gabranth. He kind of just does a bit of everything except for healing, and he does the HP damage plus 10% on Outlaw's brand is party wide because it's a debuff. So he helps the party out in many different ways, and everything that he doesn't cover, Paladin Cecil kind of does. And then with his LD, basically, this is what I was saying earlier, he gets, with his LD boards, etc., this becomes a triple hitting attack that's 4-hit brave HP, that's split damage. It also gives you the attack down and defense down straight away, so if you wanted to use it first, so you've got the buff from this straight away. And you get an Innocence Plus off of this again, which is what you get the triple attack from. And this also re-breaks, so you just get a lot of it. It also batteries after the HP damage is dealt, so you get the safety of that. But the main thing that you're using this for, apart from just big damage, is the fact that you get Prince's Keeper, which raises his max bravery and his attack and reduces the HP damage by 20% as a passive. and it's 12 turns long after you put Power Stones into it, so it's lasting a really long time. You only get 3 uses of this, but it hits really hard, and you should only really be using this to refresh Prince's Keeper to keep it up for as long as you can, because it's just, all told, like, bravery damage minus 30%, HP damage minus 20%, 60% if you've used his C65, so maybe that's something you could consider with Onion Knight even, like for free skill uses, etc. He's got party auras for max bravery and attack up. He hits really hard. He's got like the attack down debuffs. He's got poison. He's got a lot going on, and he can, because of how many different things he has going on, he counters quite a few orbs, but for Lufenia. However, the thing with Gabranth is that because he's considered this jack of all trades, the master of none thing, I wouldn't say it doesn't apply to him because he does a lot of things very well, but when you have characters that are very specialised in their kits and you're going into Lufenia missions that require certain specialties, like you're not going to take Gabranth to everything. Like you're not going to take him over a character like Paladin Cecil, who has all of the support capabilities all maxed out in one, unless of course it's Holy Absorb. Then you're probably going to take somebody else over Paladin Cecil. But the point being is that like you don't, like he makes DE Transcendance significantly easier. Definitely. It is the event that he's being released on. But past that point, you'll notice that more and more characters like being released. There's a lot of really strong characters coming out, and Gabranth is often forgotten, not because he's bad, just because he's kind of got a little bit of everything, and it's not a case of, oh, okay, I've got this event, I need to bring this character. Gabranth is an all-round, really powerful unit, but you don't absolutely have to have him for any given time. Like even DE Transcendance, there are many clears that don't have him, and there are certain, like Paladin Cecil is still the priority, so if you haven't got him, then you should still be spending your resources on him over either Kais or Gabranth. But Gabranth is a very strong character, just all told. Okay, so before anything else, we do need to talk about Gabranth's call abilities. Now, on first glance, Gabranth's call abilities don't look all that special, because Circular Judgment is just a AoE Brave HP attack, it's single target HP, gives party bravery, which is nice, and it does the attack and defense down one target. And then Innocence is what you would expect from it. Sadly, you don't get the instant break out of it, but you get a 6-hit Brave HP attack that's executed twice. You get attack and max bravery for the caller, which is kind of cool as well, like having a defense down on them and having an attack up on your party. However, let's not forget, this is very similar to how Caius worked. Now, when Caius came in, the reason that you wanted Caius as an LD call had nothing to do necessarily with the call itself. But when he came in, he inflicted all of his debuffs, all his framed debuffs, so that you had them, you had the Doom, you had all of that. Obviously, his, like Caius' call has instant break on it and all of that. However, you get Outlaw's Brand when you call in Gabranth, which means you get an HP damage up on a call ability. Now that's something that really should not be underestimated. It's a very powerful thing to have. We've seen it come out of Jack, like, because more bravery damage equals more HP damage, but now that you're getting an HP damage call as well, that actually adds up, and I know a lot of people are excited for Gabranth based on his call ability alone, as well as all of his utility. And then with his armor, he has the support keystone. You guys know how I feel about Support Keystone. I can live with it or without it, but I think because Gabranth's EX hits quite as hard as it does, as does his LD, having the extra break damage limits on him could actually be quite valuable, because it does expand his damage output quite a lot, especially if you pair him up with Cecil or somebody with the Unity Keystone as well. Like, it does make a big difference to him in particular. And then finally with artifacts, you're going to want to attack on him because you want to attack on practically everybody, and his C50 is actually really strong. Like, it raises all of his relevant stats as long as an enemy is inflicted with either Criminal's Mark or its upgraded version in Outlaw's Brand. So as I said earlier, I'm actually going to be splitting this video into two. So I've got this video talking about Gabranth and then another one talking about DE Transcendance. So I'm going to skip over the event portion of the video and instead go straight to the big question as to whether you should be pulling for Gabranth now that you've seen what it is that he has to offer. And honestly, I think for a wide variety of players, Gabranth is a really solid investment because he's very easy to just plop into a team. He goes in everything. He like even along like other debuffers, he has his framed debuffs, but he has like as long as it's not like Kefka or a mid-Italian, he can actually benefit from other debuffers because the enemy wants to have 4 debuffs on them. So the Outlaw's Brand is the other debuff that you get instead of Criminal's Mark, and then he now reduces HP and bravery damage passively, so he doesn't interrupt other characters like tanks or anything like that. He's got defensive debuffs, like I said. His debuffs are very much like attack down oriented, poison, though he has HP damage plus on 10% as well, so he is actually aiding your damage output on top of that. And the instant breaks left, right and center, like his EX, his LD and his skill 2 all have instant break capabilities, and we've seen with Ramza how useful that can be, so it's not to be understated. And if you want someone who like is a perfect companion for the likes of Paladin Cecil or Ramza or characters coming up in the future, he's going to like make a great team, certainly for a lot of people, like certainly newer players. Like if you have Paladin Cecil and Gabranth, you can probably take yourself through 90% of the game if you have the pair of them fully loaded, and it's going to make DE Transcendance a much easier time for you if you have Gabranth, because not only does the Lufenia orb require him, he does counter a lot of the mechanics that they use, and it's still a difficult time even if you do have Gabranth. So he is going to be valuable on that front. However, if you're hurting for resources after like Cecil, or you pulled for Kais and it didn't go very well, Gabranth is really good, like in a lot of teams, but there are a lot of like Lufenias that require very specific things, and because of Gabranth's kind of generalized kit, there are certain situations where you're not going to bring him, and he'll probably be the first character that gets booted from your team in favor of these more specialized events. But that being said, there are a lot of orbs that he does counter as well. Like there's little tidbits like his counter-attacking inflicting debuffs. Even though it's not a damage-dealing counter, it still counts as a counter for certain Lufenia missions. He has sap in his Outlaw's Brand and things like that. He got a lot of things that help with a lot of, and you know, if you have to take less bravery damage or less HP damage, he's going to help with a lot of that stuff. But anything else, he's probably the first character that's going to get dropped, and you don't have to have him. So therefore, if you feel confident that you can beat DE Transcendance without him, he does actually return a couple of times over in JP. In fact, he's only just come back out again alongside Kate Sith's LD. So, and he comes back along with Divine Brothers as well. So there are other opportunities to get Gabranth. And if you can deal with stuff without him, there are other characters that are coming out in the near future that they do function differently from him, like Celes and Aerith. They do function very fundamentally differently from the Gabranth, but you can only have 3 people in a team, and therefore you're not going to take, like you could take Celes and Gabranth, but then you're not taking like Celes and Cecil and stuff like that. So you've got to kind of pick and choose where you can fit people in. Gabranth is really, really good. So I personally plan to spend a fair few tickets on him, and if I hadn't gotten like shafted by Cecil and by Onion Knight previously, I probably would have gone gems on this banner, because I really love Gabranth as one of my favourite characters, and I still don't have Cecil's Burst, so I could do with that as well. So I don't think you would be remiss to go fairly heavily on Gabranth, certainly with tickets, because he is really good. And then finally, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to vote and comment and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any particular banner and why. So once again, a massive thank you goes out to all of my patrons for casting their votes and letting everyone know their feelings. And this one's kind of a little bit all over the place, very similarly to Kais. Like, the results are very similar to him. So we'll go straight into it, we'll go into the numbers. 13% of people said they were going to use gems on this banner. 67% of people said that they were going to use over 100 tickets. 17% of people said that they weren't going to use, they were going to use less than 100 tickets. And only 3% of people said that they weren't going to pull on this banner at all. So again, I get the very distinct impression that a lot of people want Gabranth. I am certainly in that camp. I definitely want Gabranth. But not everybody needs to have him. Like, there's more people spending gems on this banner than they did with Kais. And maybe that comes down to this is the last banner that has Paladin Cecil available to him. Or maybe like people got lucky with certain banners and therefore they don't feel the need to spend gems. But people generally really like Gabranth. So going into some of the comments, Goose says 100 plus tickets for this Dogger Solidor. As a unit, I can't see getting much use out of him past his Transcendance debut because his kit seems so diffused, but his LD call is fantastic. HP damage up on a call is wild, and the debuffs on his regular call ability aren't too shabby either. Plus he's from Evilly, so I can't help but pull. Now this is what I was saying earlier. Now the LD call ability on Gabranth is something. Having HP damage up available at end for anyone is almost reason enough for me to want him. The fact that I loved him when he came out as EX Plus and I bought his costume because he's Gabranth helps a lot. But I do think that he is useful in multiple events, and that cool ability is something to look forward to going forward. But like I said, he does come back multiple times already. Aurelius says, I voted no, but not without a lot of deliberation, because I genuinely think he has an interesting kit. My roster is diverse enough, however, where I think I can complete Transcendance without him, and Gabranth doesn't seem to have a lot of longevity. And the main reason, I also have Vincent, who is more than a suitable replacement for Gabranth. Now, I found this comment very interesting, because it's actually very correct. Gabranth's primary function is to take less damage, and Vincent has a very strong attack and initial bravery down debuff that allows for him to keep you safe. But it's like I've said a couple of times before, there's no reason why you couldn't pair them both together. Like, if you could imagine, because Gabranth's attack and defense debuffs are actually very, minimal, they're only there to add to the debuff count for Outlaws brand. If you can combine that with the attack down debuff of the likes of Vincent, you could actually get really minimalistic damage. If you could imagine a team of those two and then Balthea or something like that, that you cover all of the bases except for healing, which can be done by calls or Paladin Cecil even, then you'll have to do a little bit of debuff management, but it could end up being a really powerful thing. So Sad Panda 350 says, Gabranth suffered a little bit from being one of the last EX Plus era characters, but it didn't stop him from being really useful. Powered up now with an LD, I'll gladly welcome him and his debuffs back to active duty. Willing to spend up to 300 tickets. If that doesn't do it, then things are going to get interesting. It's kind of where I am. I don't want to have to spend 300 tickets, but we have a Divine Summon coming pretty much straight after him. Although I will also say that we have the Start Dash banner coming before that. So what? My feelings on the Start Dash banner, I will cover in obviously a Should You Pull video for that banner. But I think that it's something that some people might want to pull on, but it's not one that I would recommend for everybody. But I'll go into that another time. And then finally, ABC says, Gabranth is awesome. Favorite debuffer and has the best EX in the game. He both increases party attack max bravery, lowers enemies, and mitigates damage. With the LD, he has more insta-break, more aura, and battery, and more skill uses. Go, go, go. Yeah, so there are people that think that they just want to go all in on him. But like I said, and his EX is really good. Triple HP dump, instant break, it's good stuff. You're going to do a lot of damage with it. But, there are going to be people that really love him, and there are going to be people that aren't so fussed by him. But I think that there are a lot more people in the camp of people that really want him than those that don't. So thank you all very much for your comments. Hopefully this will give you guys a little bit more of a guideline for opinions about Gabranth outside of my own, and I'll give you a little bit more of a guidance as to whether you'd like to pull for him for yourself. So that's going to be it for today's Should You Pull video. Like I said at the beginning, this video is very much geared towards just Gabranth and what he has to offer, and it's not talking about DE Transcendance because I'm going to make another video completely separately from this one that's going to talk about DE Transcendance at a greater detail, how to prepare for it, what characters are useful for this particular version, but it's more of a generalized video with some specifics added for this particular mission. So if you're looking forward to that, then of course subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications for that video as and when it comes out, and don't forget to check out all my social medias and all of that stuff as I said earlier. And that's going to be it from me. Let me know in the comments below whether you're going to be playing for Gabranth. So until next time, I shall see you later. Take care.